that.
Fenway Park is iconic, Oracle Park is beautiful, but nothing beats Wrigley Field.
Is it fair as a grown man to bring the glove to the game?
And the vibes don't get much better than a day game on a Wednesday. Oh, the double-flapped helmet. Is that Mark Bellhorn? I had practiced my cuts earlier in the day, but yeah, unfortunately, I'm no Sammy Sosa in the cages. I also had to find a way to get rid of that Lacoste shirt that I, for some reason, thought would be good to wear to the Cubs game. Not a single person was in a collared shirt. I looked like I was at one of Mick's fraternity parties, so I got the Harry Carey Cub. Can you smell it? Nostalgia. We started in the outfield, got ourselves a big old burger. Then it was third baseline. And then, why not? We may as well test our luck, and we got the best seats in the house.
Long term, Cody. Long term, baby.
Add in a Polish sausage. Why not? I'm not driving.
Pickle spear for the run? One? I'm good, thank you.
Hey. Now batting for the Brewers, number 22, Pete Davidson, and he struck out.
And while we're at it, may as well fly the W. Welcome into the Cubs baseball channel. And with that being said, what do you say, everyone? That's a good way to start our first live show. Now, if I would have known we were going live this morning, I would have got Bill O'Reilly in there. We'll do it live, but we're going to do it live anyway on this Thursday morning, 9 a.m. on the dot Central Time. Cubs get it done yesterday against the Milwaukee Brewers, who had a 9-game winning streak entering or after the first win of this series, and now they don't have a 9-game winning streak. They don't have a 10. They don't have an 11. They have a 2-game losing streak, and Chicago is within 3 games of Milwaukee for first place. So we said it was potentially a must-win game on Tuesday. They win that game. Kyle Hendricks comes out, pitches fantastic. We're getting to all this on the Cubs baseball channel. Be sure to join the channel, like, subscribe, comment, and let's have a good time, Mick. Let's do a show, man.
Hey, look, this is fantastic. And I said I wasn't going to say, hey, look, and I did anyway. So that right off the bat at the drinking game, go ahead and pound one back. The best part about doing a live show is that Stanley, we get to hear your comments, man. That's why we did this. We wanted to hear what you guys had to say. So get in the comments section and be part of the show today. And if you're not here while we're live and you're watching, hey, still comment because we're going to get involved with you guys as well. But winning close games shows the strength and character of this team. Now on the Cincinnati for 4 games. Go Cubs, go. I'm telling you, baby, this is what baseball in the playoffs look like. The Cubs are going to have to play playoff baseball. Really, they've been doing it since the trade deadline. All these games count, but you were there yesterday. There was just a vibe at the stadium.
It was a playoff vibe, no doubt about it. Bleachers were packed. I got to the left field bleachers probably 45 minutes before first pitch, packed. All the bars walking in were slammed. Not a lot of people were working, it seemed like yesterday. Their job was watching and cheering on the Cubs to beating the Milwaukee Brewers, and that's exactly what happened. And it started with a big first inning where Ian Happ knocked one in. Dansby Swanson with a little sacrifice fly. They had 2 of the big RBIs. And just the heart of the order in this game. Happ, Bellinger, Swanson provide the only 3 Cubs RBI. They needed that. They needed these 3 guys to step up and have the timely hits, and really a sacrifice fly and Cody Bellinger, a little jam shot that goes right up the middle and hits off the pitcher's foot. That's just 2 players getting the bat on the ball and finding a way to get the job done. But it all started with Kyle Hendricks, who outpitched Brandon Woodruff, one of the best players in baseball over the last 5 years, one of the best pitchers in baseball over the last half decade. Woodruff went 6 innings of 2-run baseball. Hendricks said, I'm going to take that one step better. Quality. 6 innings, 4 hits, no runs, 6 strikeouts. What did you love from the professor in this one?
First, he's not throwing very hard. And I'm so sick of the analytics. That's why I started the Scout podcast with Tim Wilkins, because he's a former Cubs scouting director. The analytics are a tool, but they're not the be-all, end-all of baseball. And Kyle Hendricks is the opposite of everything that the analytics people tell you, right? Well, you're not supposed to be able to get outs if you don't, throw the ball. You don't have this velo and everything else. he's able to change speeds. He's going to outsmart guys with his ability to know where your weaknesses are. He's going to set you up. He's setting these guys up from the last time that they played and the last time that they played and the time before that, He was awesome, and it wasn't overpowering. It was just the professor doing his thing. I loved every bit of it. Honestly, like it felt like 2016 all over again.
All right, so let's go to that 8th inning. Cubs were up 2-1 at the time. I was thinking, all right, they're getting it done. They've led this entire game. Fans are on their feet. Bases are loaded up. Adbert Alzolay comes in for a 4-out save. Alzolay hits a batter. Now, I forget, did he hit Yelich? I forget who he hit, but he hit a batter that tied up the game at 2. And I want to give Adbert a huge pat on the back because right then and there, a lot of pitchers unravel in that situation. How many times do you see him give up a bases clearing double, game's over, and you say, oh, goodness. Adbert has not done that all year. He's been consistent. Alzolay has been a huge reason why the Cubs are in the position that they're in right now, and that is in the playoffs if the season ended today. And within 3 games of the Brewers, he comes in, gives up that 1 run, gets out of the inning unscathed. Cody Bellinger gets the run across the plate in the 9th inning, and that was just due to the fact that the Cubs got runners on base. It's what they did in the 1st inning. 1st and 2nd, nobody out. And of course, Bellinger got him across the plate. That's what Bellinger does. And Adbert comes in for the, to finish him off in the bottom of the 9th or the top of the 10th, rather, whatever the hell we're talking about here.
Yeah. Look, I did it again. All right. A couple things. First off, the bullpen. Okay. The issue that I have with the bullpen is we have the A-team bullpen, Merriweather, Leiter Jr., Alzolay, those guys are the A-team bullpen, or Alzolay. It was Alzolay when he was with the Smokies. Anyway, Alzolay. And Leiter Jr. walked a couple of guys, just couldn't quite get them put away, and did a good job, just couldn't finish them off. And then you're right, and then Alzolay comes in and hits the guy that loads the bases or whatever, right? But he got the job done. I'll tell you what really, though, to me stands out is the resilience that the Cubs had. It was just such a momentum-sucking run that the Brewers scored because they didn't get a hit to drive in the run. It was a couple of walks and a hit batter. And it was all with 2 outs, like a base hit to right field and then 2 walks and then that. And then they came right back. And, of course, it was Cody Bellinger who, in the bottom of the 8th inning, would get the hit, which was a line drive off the leg of the pitcher, but that would knock in the run. I mean, that's been kind of the formula. What I wish is that the Cubs could find maybe one other guy to help out in that bullpen. And that could be something we talk about later. One of these guys who was released this week or put on waivers by their team. But I really feel like one good bullpen arm could be the difference, just to give those guys a break, because every time the game's close, it's the same group of guys who are coming in to pitch for the Cubs. So these 2 games between the Cubs and the Brewers, they really were well-played games. They were fun to watch, the kind of baseball that I love. Both teams' starting pitchers did well. Runs were hard to come by. The environment at Wrigley Field felt like the playoffs. And it was just a fantastic 2 games. The game before that, Jamison Taillon got roughed up in the 1st inning, but then he settled down. So, really one bad inning in the entire series.
Yeah, that was it felt like the playoffs, man. And you wondered after that first game, entering the second, let's see what Justin Steele has. If Justin Steele can't take down Milwaukee, maybe Milwaukee is just the team to beat in this division, and it's time to start putting all our focus into the wild card, because it felt like a must-win game. And Steele doesn't give up a run. The Cubs shut out the Brewers 1-0 in game 2. And then yesterday, Kyle Hendricks has to go 6 innings of no earned run baseball just to put the Cubs in a position to win it. But the difference between this team and, let's go with June, and the August entering September installment of the Cubbies is they're winning these games. Mm-hmm. Adbert gives up that run and the game's tied 3-3 in June. Brewers may get a bases clearing double there or a single there to bring in a couple more runs, but he locks down the fort. He says, no, this is Fort Knox. You don't come into Wrigley Field and score 2 runs in the top of the 8th inning. That doesn't happen here. Bellinger gets the chance in the 8th inning, puts the bat on the ball, puts it into play, hits it hard enough to where a run scores that way. And this team's resilient. You talked a lot about bringing up Pete Crow Armstrong because this team had not been clutch. I don't know if clutch is the right word. It's just timely hitting. Not only have they been timely in their hitting right now, the bullpen's been timely and shutting down the opposition.
Mm-hmm.
This is
well, look, let me say something right here too.
Entering the deadline, I was just saying with this team, I didn't think they had it, and we both said it. I did not think they had it. In the last month, they may have it because they're not losing games.
Well, these are the games that the Brewers have played all year. They have a tough time pulling ahead of teams, but they won a lot of these close games where it's like they play these games every night, and you can tell by their run differential that it's always a close game. But give the Cubs credit, and I agree. This wasn't the team that we saw up until a week before the trade deadline.
No, not whatsoever. Where do you want to steer this conversation, man? We've talked about the vibes at Wrigley. I do want to actually mention one more thing about this series, and that's Jameson Taillon. And you mentioned it a little bit, but in that first game in this series, he gives up 4 runs in the first inning and ends up going 6. He could have completely crumbled. They could have taken the ball from him in the first or the second and gone to the bullpen. And to me, it's like a sleep pattern. Let's say, for example, you're running on 4 or 5 hours of sleep one night, and then the next day you're tired and you don't get your work done because you are tired or whatever it may be, and you're behind the 8 ball, and then the next day you don't get good sleep because you were behind the 8 ball and had to get a lot of work done. It's just cyclical. And that's what it's like in baseball when you're working these arms throughout the series. By game 3, your bullpen shot. You're in a tough position to win a game. And Taillon got it started with 6 innings. Justin Steele goes 6 innings. Kyle Hendricks goes 6 innings. So they really helped out the bullpen in this situation. They have an off day to keep these arms fresh. Mm-hmm. And now, what did Bill Belichick coin so famously years ago? We're on to Cincinnati. They are on to Cincinnati, and the Cubs are within 3 games, and they have a cushion now in the wild card, but we're focusing in on the division right now. You can pop it back up, show the people where they're at. And it's beautiful. We haven't mentioned it because they haven't been a player at all this season, but looking at the Cardinals in last place, they have a mountain to climb just to catch Pittsburgh. Oh, it's a beautiful sight.
Always good to get a dig in on the Cardinals. Yeah, look, these were games that we knew going in, and that's 3 looks right now. So everybody's taking 3 shots with me as I try to stop saying look all the time.
You're doing it to yourself. No one's saying.
I'm saying it. Look, take a shot, put it in there.
See, I have the drinking game too, to where my crutch phrase is, I say, with that being said, because I talk fast. I'm a broadcaster. I try to be smooth, and I sometimes will say, with that being said. So I have to stop saying that. You have to stop saying look. And if we say
it's a drinking game
for the rest of the time, yeah, it's a shot. It's a drinking game.
It's just a shot. There's 3 shots already on the show.
9 a.m.
Pittsburgh and St. Louis, terrible. Cincinnati still in the race. That's why this series, and we'll get into that a little bit later, is so pivotal for the Reds. They're in the same spot that the Cubs were in, playing Milwaukee for 3. And Cincinnati, and when we get into the wild card coming up too, they're still in the mix there as well. And the Cubs, by winning 2 games, are within 3. I like where they're at right now. Look at that record. Could you imagine them being 71-62, the way that they were playing a week before the trade deadline? So a lot of good things going on with this Cubs team.
And when you look at the wild card standings, it's the Phillies up at the top. And I think Philadelphia is the team that it's going to take that top spot because, quite frankly, they look like they've looked at the end of last year when they were picking up steam and end up tumbling all the way to the World Series, or tumbling is not the right adjective there, but they moved all the way to the World Series with a hot winning streak. And you see they're 7-3, just like the Cubs in their last 10. They have a 3-game cushion. I think they're in. Lock it in. Throw the key. Philadelphia is not blowing that 5-game lead. Mm-hmm. They're in. I think San Francisco / Arizona is in. I think Cincinnati's out. I've told you this for the last 2 months. The Reds are ahead of schedule. They will be a really good team probably next year, definitely the year after. They have a ton of money to spend. Griffey's finally coming off the books. Mike Moustakas is coming off the books, and Joey Votto is coming off the books. They will have millions this offseason to go on a spending spree. It's hard to convince good pitchers to head over to Great American Small Park where their ERA is going to get shelled, but you pay them enough money, they could get a couple pitchers to add to the mix with Nick Lodolo, Hunter Green, Ashcraft, and Andrew Abbott. So the Reds will be good. Right now, they're fraudulent. They're not making the playoffs. They just do not have whatever it is, and it is pitching. They don't have it. So forget about the Reds. So the Cubs are fighting right now with San Francisco and Arizona. It's coming down to the West, in my opinion. They just can't let either of those two teams jump them. And even if one does jump them, they're still in that comfortable spot sitting in third. But they got to just stick where they're at right now in that 2-hole. Catching Philly would be great. But keep winning games. See if the Brewers can lose some games and take it one day at a time because they control their own destiny, and that is a great spot to be in at this stage in the season.
Yeah, and you talk about those matchups. Look, I mean, there's their fourth shot. Okay, guys, you got the 4 games against the Reds. Then you got the Giants and the Diamondbacks at home at Wrigley. You know that the environment's going to be great, exciting stuff, and then you go on the road and you got to play the Diamondbacks on the road, and then you got some more last place teams, and then you finish up in Atlanta and in Milwaukee. And by the time you get to Atlanta and Milwaukee, that the end of the season could be really exciting in Milwaukee, and that could be another one of those road home series for the Cubs, you know, when all of us take over Milwaukee Stadium. But you got to get there first. And I think that last series against Atlanta, that the Cubs going into that series will probably play a Braves team that's just trying to get ready for the playoffs. They'll have nothing on the line. That may help you too. But it's an interesting schedule because the teams that you saw in that wild card race, we're playing them. Reds 1 game back, 4 games. Giants a half a game back or in, you know, they're 3 games. Diamondbacks, you got 7 games against them. So you got all these games coming up against the teams. It's like a round robin. I love that.
If you want to make the playoffs, this is the stretch. Let's say you take 3 or 4 from Cincy. Let's not do the schedule game. Let's just say they take all 3 of these series, one way or the other, whether they're sweeps or just taking 2 or 3 or 3 or 4, or even if they split Cincinnati. If they don't lose one of these 3 series and then they take care of business against Colorado, entering that Diamondback series right there, they could be in a pretty good spot because they're playing head-to-head. It's essentially 2 games. It's the 2-for-1 special. We're at Aldi, baby. 2-for-1 special. You take down the Giants, and if you sweep one of those teams, you can bury them. You can bury the Diamondbacks. You have 6 coming up with the Diamondbacks. Mm-hmm. You take 5 of 6 against Arizona. Hey, it's getting ready for spring training in Arizona.
7.
We'll
4
see
at
how
home and 3 on the road.
Soon.
Yeah, it's 7 of them, you know. So yeah, you're right. I mean, you could do some serious damage, you know, against these teams that you're lined up against. But I think at the end of the day, when you look at where the Cubs are right now, it comes down to starting pitching. And I said that against the Brewers going into that series, and I'm glad I said it because it really was starting pitching. Their guys did good. The Cubs guys did better, except game 1 when Taillon got rocked in the first, and that really took the Cubs out of that game. Then the next 2 nights, Justin Steele looked like a Cy Young Award winner, and Kyle Hendricks looked like a Cubs Hall of Famer. He might not be a Major League Baseball Hall of Famer, but one day he'll be in that Cubs Hall of Fame. He really is one of the Cubs all-time greats. He just is.
Cub fan for life. Cub fan for life joining us. He probably agrees that he's one of the all-time Cubs greats. How can you not? But he's from deep South Texas. Love it. Cubs fan. Can't stop watching the same highlights over and over. And 2 of those highlights, the 2 RBIs came in the first inning, and a couple of them were, you know, a sac fly and a line drive off the leg of a pitcher. So it wasn't like it was the wind was whipping in, it seemed like.
Right.
So it was another good one where two great pitchers, Woodruff and Headricks, squared off. And for the second straight game, we talk about Milwaukee and how they have the best rotation in baseball, or one of them, when you throw in Peralta into the mix and what Wade Miley's done too. The Cubbies just went in, and granted they didn't go into Milwaukee, but they stayed at home. They welcomed the Brewers in, and they went toe-to-toe and outdueled them at their own game. They beat Milwaukee at their own game, and it has to give you a lot of encouragement, because they did the same thing with Atlanta, and they've done the same thing with they took care of business against all these bad teams. They drilled Cincinnati. They were putting up touchdowns on the Reds.
No, that's right.
At this point, they've faced a lot of these teams. They took care of business in Canada. The only bad series that we've been looking at since we started this channel, and we've put out 75 videos, Mick. That's a milestone, baby. We've put out 75 videos, and the Cubs have had like one bad series during this stretch, and it was in New York. It was in the Big Apple, in at least talented team. So the Cubs are hitting stride right now. We were wondering if they had what it takes to win it all. I don't know if they have what it takes to win it all, but they have what it takes to get into the playoffs, and they are getting into the playoffs. It's happening, folks. We are going to have postseason baseball if this continues and they can stay healthy and potentially add to this team. What are the chances that they get someone through the wire?
Well, that could happen. And let me go back to you talking about them making the playoffs, because I had this pulled up, and then we'll kind of switch gears. But when we started, and I was saying, hey, we needed to trade. And I knew that just spending, so much time around baseball and understanding farm systems and minor leagues and all that stuff, that this was the year that you wanted to sell, because there was not many sellers. There was a lot of buyers and not many sellers. Now, with that said, I'm so glad that this team decided that they were going to be special, because Dansby Swanson has led these guys into doing something spectacular. This just doesn't happen very often. You normally you try to go all in as a team with a 12% chance to make the playoffs, and you look like the Angels.
Angels are a train wreck. Hey, if there are 40 people,
they were the exact same team with a better record and the same odds to make the playoffs. My point. But anyway, listen, you got right now, the Cubs have a 77.5% chance to make the playoffs on Fangraphs. Their odds to win the World Series are up to 1.7%. They were like at 0.01% before, right? 56% to clinch a wild card, 21.3% to win the division. The Reds are down to 0.7%. The Brewers are still at 77.9%, but all those odds are on the up. And you're a guy who loves to gamble. Can you imagine if you would have taken the Cubs?
Allegedly.
Can you imagine taking the Cubs back when they were like a 12.7% chance team to make the playoffs? You could have really cashed in on that.
Yeah, it was probably plus 450 odds or something. You could have quadrupled your cash in that situation. While we're on the topic of the waiver wire guys, it brings up what the Angels did, because when the Cubs decided not to sell and buy in, they had that stretch where it was 4 games against Cincinnati and it was 3 games against Atlanta. And it was back when Cincinnati at least appeared to be rolling pretty good. So you had 7 games right there that could have made or broken the season. And granted, they won 5 of those 7. They went 5-2, and they haven't looked back since. But they were in the same exact position as the Angels. The Angels decided to bring in Giolito, who wasn't even having a great year. But they said, let's get one more arm. Let's hope Mike Trout gets healthy.
And a bullpen guy too.
Yeah, and let's try
Lopez,
to win this thing. Let's try to win this thing for Ohtani. And a lot of it is probably the fact that they knew the only way to get Ohtani back next year was to show that they aren't cowards and they need to go for it this year. But by doing that, they gave away Edgar Caro, catcher of the future, no doubt, potential really good catcher. They gave away Kai Bush, like a potential number 2 or number 3 or even potential an ace in a rotation. They gave him away for this rental. That rental is now on the wire a month and a half later. He is on the wire, available to be picked up. Tell the audience what the Cubs' chances are, and add in the comments if you even want Lucas Giolito or Mike Clevenger, or which would you take if you had your option. And granted, they may not have the option to get either, because here's how it works.
Yeah, look, there's 5. Go ahead. what you have to do.
I'm not going to be able to pick up my wife from the airport, Mick.
What it comes down to is this. You got to get lucky, okay? Because every team that is in the standings below the Cubs right now has the chance to sign the waiver guys first. So they have to drift to you. And then you've got to have the money, which the Cubs, I'm sure, do, to pay for the Matt Moores, which I think Matt Moore, who's one of the Angels' dumps, is a great pitcher. I was talking with Tim Wilkin yesterday off the air, our partner in the the Scout podcast, former scouting director of the Cubs. He knows everything about this stuff, been doing it 40 years. And he agreed with me. I love Matt Moore too. I feel like Quaz, the guy they traded Kansas City for, has just not been effective. I mean, he just is not worth what we gave up to get him. But I know what they're doing. They're just trying to find an answer outside of the four guys that they can rely on right now to help them in these high leverage games. And we talked about that earlier. So if the Cubs could even just get somebody to help in that capacity, I think that they would go for it. But look, if Clevenger, there's another one. Clevenger, you're going to be, I hope you're not driving.
I can't take anymore, Mick. At this point, you're doing it on purpose because you never have 5 in a given show. It's usually 1 or 2. You're doing it on purpose. You want me to rip out Don Julio and have this thing empty by the end of it. So we go viral is the jackasses that at 9:40 in the morning take down an entire little pint.
Okay, well, I'll stop with them. But if they got Giolito, the opportunity to get him, he was just with the White Sox, Clevenger, somebody else. I think it would be. I mean, look at how good he pitched. No, that's a different one. Look at that. He pitched so well against the Cubs in that game at Wrigley, the Morel home run game. Remember that? So we know what he can do. It's just getting through all the other teams to get to the Cubs where they have the opportunity to shell out the money to get these guys. And you have to have them on the roster by September 1st to be able to have them on the playoff, the postseason roster. And let me add this in. I've been sitting here saying that I think Hollywood Pete Crow Armstrong would be somebody you add to your roster. We're keeping a close eye on that. And if he does get added to the roster, we'll let you know. But he's struggling right now in Iowa. And with this now as a scenario, maybe instead of bringing up your top prospect and a firecracker like Hollywood Pete, maybe that's the move that you make. And the roster spot you were going to use there, you use for someone that you got on the waiver wire this year. And I've heard from a few people that the players union is not happy about this dump that these teams are doing. And it really is. It should be illegal. I mean, you should not be able to just dump all of your players that are good players that should be on the roster because you're out of it and you want to save a couple bucks. It feels like peanuts. Ownership trying to peanuts. It's just unfair to the balance of the game because these teams aren't giving up anything to get better. This could change the entire race. And for the Cubs, unfortunately, the bad part about being good and having a 2-game lead in the wild card is that you got 3 teams that are chasing you: the Giants, who have money, the Diamondbacks, who don't, and the Marlins, who don't, and the Reds. So that's 4 that could go and buy these players without having to give anything up.
Yeah, so that's what it comes down to for those of you that are wondering like how this waiver wire works. It's kind of like in fantasy football that you go down the list first and the worst teams have the first chances to pick them up. And why wouldn't San Francisco want Lucas Giolito? If they have the option and they have the money, I could see him winding up there very easily. Logan Webb, Alex Cobb, Lucas Giolito. That seems like a pretty good 3-man rotation to me to do some damage in the playoffs. And then Arizona, I don't think Arizona needs them. Like Arizona is pretty loaded pitching wise. I don't know where you throw Mike Clevenger or Lucas Giolito because I don't think either of them are dynamite at this stage.
You take them just to keep them away from the Cubs, maybe.
I mean, yeah, you could really look that route. All right, let's finish the show with this. And be sure to, if you've enjoyed the show, I see that we have 45 people on there. And
45 thumbs up.
If you're 45 of the faithful that are subscribed, I'll give you a flex. If not, go ahead and subscribe right now. It takes 2 seconds. We're throwing content up all the time. We've had interviews with Ron Coomer and David Kaplan and Lawrence Holmes the other day, and we don't date any of these interviews. Pete Crow Armstrong came on the show. We ask very generic, evergreen questions. So when the new audience does roll in, you can go down the timeline and pick some thumbnails that you like or some topics that sound interesting and hear these other media personalities' takes. And this is what the Cubs baseball channel does. We bring on people that love the Cubs and we talk about the Cubs nonstop. And every once in a while, we'll debate whether the Angels stink really bad and whether the White Sox are leaving Chicago. And aside from that, it's Cubs all the time. So like, subscribe, join the channel. Let's finish talking about the Cincinnati Reds. I mentioned it. The Reds are fraudulent this year. I think they can be a really stellar team down the road, and they have all the right building blocks in place, but they're imploding right now. They just don't have it. And it, once again, is the pitching to get it done.
Still a dangerous team, though. They have guys that can hit. They can score a lot of runs. We'll get to see Ellie De La Cruz, some of these young players, Matt McClain. Major League Baseball has definitely caught up with those guys enough to know how to pitch them. They've got some decent young starters. Injuries have obviously hurt them. But it's do or die for the Reds in this series. They're kind of in the same spot that the Cubs were in. Do or die. So it's going to be a tough series, but the Cubs always seem to play well at Great American Ballpark. And a doubleheader on Friday, big games, both of them. I'm excited to see what Jordan Wicks does in this series, second time around. You know, did they make an adjustment to the changeup? Who knows what's going to happen, but this is what you want. You got playoff baseball in September.
You'll see the Wicks and then Assad back-to-back combo that looked nice last weekend, and we'll see if the same thing happens. Let's get out of here with this because the Cubs fans always travel incredibly to Great American Ballpark. And if you hop into the game, leave a comment right now that that you're on your way to Cincinnati, Bill Belichick style. What's your favorite memory of Reds Cubs at Great American Ballpark? Now, was the Kyle Farnsworth, Paul Wilson, was that at GABP or was that at Wrigley or Synergy?
Yeah, I don't remember.
That was a good one. I think Aristides Aquino, not for good reasons, but you had to just be amazed at what he was doing against the Cubs in that series, launching them into the upper deck. But there was one series where Chris Bryant just unloaded one. The Reds were getting hot. They thought they were back in the mix, and Bryant hit like a 3-run homer to just rip out their hearts, and the Cubs won like every game after that. So there have been some good ones at
Kyle
Great American.
Schwarber
and
hit some bombs in there too.
Oh, yeah, because every time he would step up to the plate, Tom Brenneman would say, oh, the Middletown native. He grew up, right up the road from Cincinnati, and he was just a Reds killer.
Yeah,
so Baez was a Reds killer. Yet to really figure out who of this bunch is that Reds killer, just because it's a fresh team. But you would imagine that it could be the heart of the order, just like in the Milwaukee series. The 3 players that drove in the RBI in the deciding rubber match, it was Happ, it was Bellinger, it was Swanson. Not in that order, but they got it done. And it is Ian Happ's hometown. Not his hometown. I think he's from Pittsburgh.
He's from Pittsburgh. However, he went to college in Cincinnati.
He played at Cincinnati. Hold on. Damn it. Give me 5 seconds, Mick. This is a live show, but give me 5 seconds. Just stall real quick. Say something good.
Look, I'll just tell you guys this. That's the 7th look of the show. So that means that you all have to drink. No. Farnsworth was at Wrigley. Yeah, I was trying to remember, like going back and those old school days. All right, here we go.
That's for Ian Happ. The Bearcats jersey. I'll get him.
Is that what we waited for?
Yeah. I said the Cincinnati Bearcat, and I happen to have a jersey over there. I'm an honorary alum of UC. So, but he came up, and I always wondered if he was worth the top 5 pick. And look, they're God, I did it. You're rubbing off on me. There have been so many busts in baseball that are top 5 picks that I would say absolutely. Ian Happ is very well deserving of a top 5 pick. He's been good, been a pretty good fielder, and he's just been consistent. His entire career, he's been consistent. I know that his rookie year or second year has been better than this year, but that happens in baseball. He's an everyday player. Had a little bit of a slump a few weeks back, but he's starting to heat up a little bit. And that's what's great about this team. Suzuki gets hot. Suzuki cools off. Hap heats up. Hap cools off. Cody Bellinger's a constant. Dansby Swanson has his moments. This is a good team. And I'm excited, man. Entering the playoffs, I am excited because for the longest time this year, I did not think they had the kahunas to get it done. I think they have the kahunas to get it done, and that is compete. I think this team can compete with anyone.
All right. Well, I think we've said it all.
Good show, man.
Thanks for watching, guys. Like and subscribe. Give us a thumbs up, and we'll have more content coming your way here really soon. Fun live show.